All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We have come to the end of the summer, which means this is our final 30-minute world's most exciting classroom session. So ever since school went out towards the end of June, we have switched over to our 30-minute world's most exciting classrooms. We've tried to work in a live connection with the ship as it's made its way across the southern Pacific Ocean. We've had a couple of guest speakers like Darwin leaders join us to share some of their experiences out in the field and filming with local conservation NGOs. And then we've had Curiosity of the Weeks that we've strung together all summer long. So the plan for today, I don't think we'll get a live connection with the ship. We'll see. They have all the details to connect, but they did just cross the international date line. So they are now well in the future. It's quite early in the morning, so I don't know if we'll see them come in and join us today. But I was able to get a few videos shared from the Oosterschelde so we can catch up on some of the sights that they have seen as they're sailing around some of the islands in Tonga. So let's get right into it. We are also going to have an exploration of the deep sea after we share a few catch-up videos from the ship. So I was lucky enough to be on expedition on an ocean research vessel doing deep sea research. So we've looked at the ocean a lot over the last few weeks, but it's always been the surface. So the photic zone where you have bright light, coral reefs, but I thought we should spend a little time before we go back to school looking at the deep sea and what kind of things we might have been sailing over. So we're going to share that after a few videos from the ship. And then we'll wrap up. We have the final answer to last week's Curiosity of the Week. And then next week we will be back on September 12th to the full hour events. 9 o'clock Eastern, which is 2 o'clock p.m. UK time. We'll have the classrooms back with us. We'll have experiments worked back in, more guest speakers, connections from the ship, Kahoot quizzes and prizes and things like that. So everything gets back to normal in a week's time when we'll have our full hour sessions again. So let's start off with a screen share and let's see where the Oosterschelde is right now. So this should come up now. There we go. Let's go full screen. And so you can see again, if we back up, we go back in time, it is a big ocean. We have crossed most of it. And if I zoom in closer now, you can see Fiji up here. You can see New Zealand. You can see Australia. So some of our upcoming destinations. If I zoom in a little bit closer, you can see the ship spent a little time. This is Tahiti, the islands of Tahiti, or sorry, not Tahiti, Tonga. And if we zoom in here, the ship spent a little bit of time Vavau. So it spent a few days here. There's a couple little pictures here. Let's see if I can pull some of them up. There's one, a nice sunset shot of the ship. And then let's see what the other picture was. There we go. Oh, a little video. This looks like just a little bit of sailing. Some nice blue sky, some white clouds, and a few of the islands of Tonga there in the distance. So what did they get up to? What will they be up to the next few days? Well, here is our destination. So at the southern region of Tonga here, and that's where our passengers will disembark and our new group of passengers will come on board. And the next leg of the journey will take us to Fiji, where we'll have Darwin leaders coming again. So we haven't had Darwin leaders for a few weeks. So it'll be nice to bring some youth from around the world so they can take part in some local conservation and build that great video, the media they've been producing, the 3 videos. Let's come back from that screen share. Let's take a look at a few things that they have been up to on board the Oosterschelde. So I'm going to switch modes. We're going to do some video sharing now. So here's the first video. This is the Oosterschelde arriving at Vavau. Okay, so it's great to be getting that fresh content right from the ship that we can share right away. Some of you may have noticed a bird flying in one of those scenes. I think that was probably a brown booby. And if you tuned in last week, you'll remember that while Grant was talking to us, He'd gone quite some time without any birds kind of following the ship. And then a brown booby started flying in and out of the frame, so almost taunting him. So he really wanted to go grab his camera and get some pictures to document for the bird survey. And that brown booby ended up sticking around for a few days. It landed on the ship. It stayed really close to the ship. And then for whatever reason, maybe it was weak, maybe it was tired, that brown booby did pass away, but it turned into a real learning experience on the ship for the passengers, because Grant was able to do a dissection of that brown booby for them. And in next week's session, we might have a little summary video of that dissection. So we'll share that, which is kind of cool. And we'll find out if he checked the stomach for plastics, which I have a feeling if he did, that he probably would have found some plastics in the stomach of that brown booby. So the next video from the ship looks like they were having a little bit of fun. I won't tell you what it is. We'll just let the video speak for itself. All right, so it looks like they got into the water, which is awesome. Nice little rope swing they were able to make right off of the ship. Looked like that would have been a lot of fun. And then this is my favorite piece of video. So right now in that part of the world, it's the humpback whales have migrated south. It's been the females are there. They've given birth to their calves, and it's nice warm water. It's a safe nursery. But the males come there as well, and they're singing. They're trying to attract potential mates, and so they're there at just the right time of season. And Tom, as well, I imagine some of the passengers were able to go out and do some snorkeling with the humpback whales. So this is a really incredible piece of video that just hit my inbox this morning. So I'm excited to be able to share it with you now. So let me cue it up, and let's take a look at the humpbacks in Tonga. All right. I don't know about you, but I am just incredibly jealous. There are a few things in the world I would like to do more than get into the water with humpback whales, and to hear them singing like that. I have no doubt, hopefully we'll get to talk to Tom next week, that he was able to feel that singing vibrating right through his body, and to be able to just drift on the surface and film the humpback whales like that. So that's just a tiny clip. I imagine he's got a ton of footage that we're going to be able to release over the coming weeks in the water with the humpback whales in Tonga. That's so cool. So there we go. That's a little update from the Oosterschelde. They have been in the northern islands of Tonga. They're making their way south now. They were playing on rope swings, snorkeling with the humpback whales. It looks like a pretty good time. So what I'd like to do for the rest of today's session is take us on a little deep sea adventure. So most of our exploration along the way with the Oosterschelde has been pretty shallow. We've been exploring coral reefs, snorkeling, diving. We've been using our ROV, which we've explored in a few places like Porto Madryn and off the coast of Uruguay, but it can only go to about 100 meters deep. And as we know, most of our planet is ocean. We've got better maps of the moon and Mars than we do of our ocean floor. So a few years ago, I was really lucky and I was able to go on a 3-week ocean research expedition on board Bob Ballard's ship, the exploration vessel Nautilus. So Bob Ballard is a very famous oceanographer. He's the one who found the wreck of the Titanic and countless other accomplishments exploring our ocean. And what I'm going to do now is take you into a little bit of what it's like, life on an ocean ship, using robots to dive to explore places that nobody has ever seen before. So I'm going to share my screen one more time so we can take a look at this presentation together. All right, I'm going to go entire screen, screen 2. There we go. Okay, let's take it full screen. All right, that should be nice and full screen for everybody. If for some reason it isn't, please just send me a quick message in the chat sidebar, but it looks okay on my end, so I am going to dive right in. So where did I meet the ship? I caught up with the ship in California, in San Francisco. But before I got on the ship, being a diver, I want to spend a little bit of time doing some diving. So I went down to Monterey Bay to the kelp forests. So the water's a bit colder, but there's these beautiful underwater kelp forests. So it doesn't look like much. Oops, let me go back. It doesn't look like much there from the surface, but underneath is the kelp. It's towering 20, 30, 40 feet. It is an underwater forest with lots of different marine life living within it. And kelp is some of the fastest growing plants on the planet. It can grow, over a meter in the course of a day. So that's what it looked like from above. This is what it looked like from down below. So we're diving. I am on the right with a friend of mine, another fellow National Geographic explorer. So we brought one of our National Geographic flags with us. And so there we are with the flag as we're doing some of our diving in the kelp forest. So that was a fun series of dives that we did. After diving, I did a little hiking in the redwood forest. So from underwater forest to above ground forest with some of the tallest trees in the world. And then in the evening, once it got dark, the tide went out and we were able to muck around and do some tide pooling on the shore. So finding crabs, beautiful sea anemones, bat starfish, and then this little guy. Oh, sorry, one more crab. And then this little guy, this little octopus, a little baby octopus we found in one of the tide pools. And here's a little bit of a closer shot of this baby octopus. So California is a beautiful state. Lots to explore on the wild side, like the kelp forest, the redwood forest, and of course the tide pools. And then it was time to catch up with the ship. So the ship was docked in San Francisco. So I caught up with the exploration vessel Nautilus in San Francisco. Here's a picture of the ship. It's got a great crew of science people on board, navigators, ROV pilots, science communicators. Of course, there's a great crew who keeps the ship running and sailing, the cook. There's a lot of important people on board of an ocean research vessel. You don't necessarily have to be a scientist. There's lots of other careers available in ocean exploration that'll still take you out on the sea. We left the harbor, so passed under Golden Gate Bridge, leaving San Francisco behind us, and we headed into the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So I've got a little map of that, but before I show the map, I want to introduce you to the stars of this underwater exploration. So where we were exploring was 3-4 kilometers deep on an old extinct volcanic seamount called Davidson's seamount. And with it being over 3 kilometers deep, obviously nobody can scuba dive that deep. We had to use these robots. So I am going to play this video while I talk about it. This is the first one. This is Hercules. Hercules is an ROV, I think around 5,000 pounds in total. It is covered in little engines, cameras, lights. It's got retractable arms. There are different containers to store specimens, different containers on the side to take water samples. It's tethered to the ship. So we have a tether that can go over 4 kilometers, and that is the fiber optics and the power connection to the ship. So this is Hercules being lowered into the water to start a dive. And this dive ended up being a long one. This dive went for about 36 hours where the ROV was underwater and exploring a part of the ocean floor that nobody has ever seen before. Now, when Hercules goes into the water, Hercules does not go alone. Hercules has a companion here called Argus. So Argus is another ROV built a little bit differently, and they're tethered together. So Hercules is at the bottom, and it's the main kind of camera sample collection unit. Argus is at the top, is above and tethered to Hercules. So for two really important reasons. One, it can kind of keep an eye out for obstacles like maybe rock overhangs, fishing net, things like that. And also it absorbs the movement of the ship. So if the ship is going up and down with the waves, Argus moves up and down a little bit, but the tether is loose between Argus and Hercules. So Hercules doesn't move with the ship. So that's a way to kind of blunt and account for the movement of the ship on the surface. So the two dive together as a team, and they both play different roles. All right, this is the map of where we were. This is the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So you can see San Francisco up here. You can see Monterey Bay here. There's a deep water canyon that runs out. And then out here is Davidson Seamount, which is where we were doing most of the work with the ROVs. What kind of life did we see? Well, there was lots to see. This is Pictogonan, or known as a sea spider. I think you can see where it gets its name. It's got 8 legs, looks a little bit like a spider. You can see those green lasers. What are those green lasers? Well, that helps us tell how big things are, because when you're looking through video, you don't know how big something is, but those lasers are positioned 10 centimeters apart. So if you put those lasers on a fish or a Pictogonan like this one, you can get an idea how big it is. So this one here, probably if it stretches legs out, would be over 30 centimeters. So it was a big Pictogonan. I mentioned obstacles. So this is one obstacle that came out of the gloom. This was a fishing net that had maybe been discarded or maybe went overboard. And it caused a little bit of panic with the ROV pilots because they want to stay far away from that. If you get 5,000-pound remotely operated vehicle tangled up in a fish net 3 kilometers deep, it is not going to be easy to retrieve. So they spotted it nice and early and made a big wide path around this fishing net. But it is not a barren wasteland at the bottom of the ocean. There is lots of life as you begin to explore. So these here are a few things, some urchins, and we call these sea pigs. And they have found a piece of kelp. So there's a string of kelp in the middle that's floated down, maybe sunk from the surface. And so that's like a buffet for these sea pigs and these urchins. They've all crowded around this food source that has sank from the surface. Here's a lizardfish. So you can see some of the adaptations it has for living in the deep sea. There is no coloration. There's no need for it. Nothing can see it anyways. And then I would wager a guess that it's blind as well. Again, nothing to see. But they have a really developed system along their body called the lateral line. And so they can feel pressure changes within the water. And they are an ambush predator. So they got this big gulping mouth. And if something comes close, it'll be snapped up by this fish. The impacts of humans are everywhere, though. So we came across old paint cans. We came across fishing gear, balloons. Here's a Dr. Pepper can. So even 3-4 kilometers deep, we find stuff from the surface, evidence of us. And so there's a little urchin there and a little bristle star on this pop can. Now, there's scientists who are in the control booth, along with people taking video, along with the ROV pilots, along with the navigators. And the scientists are looking for things that are unique, things that they would like to try to get a sample of and make sure we get some video footage of. And so Hercules has an arm there, and it's taking a sample of a sponge for the scientists. And in the next picture, there's another tool called a slurp, which is basically a vacuum hose. And this is a different kind of sponge, and it's slurping up like a vacuum, a sample of this sponge to bring up back to the surface for the scientist on board the ship. And then here is a stocked crionid, and you can see the sample is being put into a container that can be pulled back inside of the remotely operated vehicle, the ROV. And in front is a little basket where we can pick up rock samples. We can put those rock samples into the basket and bring those up for the scientists as well. There can be a lot of biodiversity. So in this one picture alone, we've got a sea anemone, we've got a sea cucumber, an acorn worm, which is that funny looking pink thing kind of in the middle. There's some deep sea coral, and then what looks like maybe a bristle star or something like that in the background. So there is lots of biodiversity in the deep sea and a lot of different species left to be discovered by us. This is a little octopus. This is a moose octopus robustus is its scientific name. Cool looking little purple octopus. And we have a little story that I'll share in a couple slides about kind of a really big discovery that we made on this expedition. Here's a cusk eel. Again, you can see there's no real coloration. And then it's got those kind of feelers coming out from down below, which are, again, another way that it can kind of sense its environment in the dark. There would be absolutely no light at all if the ROV Hercules wasn't down there using its powerful lights. So what kind of stuff did we see and get videos of? Well, let's take a look at one right now. Some of you may have seen this before. It goes by a few different names. One is a Dumbo octopus. Sometimes it's called a umbrella octopus. And so anytime that we spot something like this, we try to spend a little time getting some video because it's charismatic, it's exciting, it's things people like to see from the deep sea. So we're going to get a little bit closer. You'll get a little better view of this really unique octopus. You can see it gets the name Dumbo. It looks like a pair of ears up there. It's actually obviously some fins to help it move through the water. And we have no idea if they're rare. We have no idea if they're endangered. We don't know what their population's like because we hardly ever get to see them except for lucky times like this when the remotely operated vehicle is in the right place at the right time. And so now it's just showing off a little bit. You can see where it gets the name umbrella octopus from as well. Very, very cool. All right. And so that was pretty cool. But then towards the end of the dive, we got another little surprise. And I'll share that with you now. So we're probably about 36 hours into the dive with the remotely operated vehicles. It was almost time to start bringing them up to the surface when we spotted a group of octopus on the rocks. So we went in for a little bit of a closer look. We noticed that they were all turned upside down. So we thought that was kind of strange. So we brought the ROV even closer with the cameras to try and see what was going on. And if you look closely, underneath them, you can see eggs. So this is a huge group. Well, it started off as just a dozen octopus. We call it brooding when they're protecting their eggs like this. But then we started to follow along because we started spotting more. And so what was a group of 12 turned into a few dozen, turned into a few hundred, turned into a few thousand octopus, all doing the exact same thing. All in these little nooks and crannies on the seamount, flipped upside down and protecting eggs. So obviously that was a question for the scientists. Why are there so many octopuses brooding in this one spot? So we got a little bit closer. You'll be able to see in some of the footage that the water in these little crevices was shimmering. And what that told us is that there is warm water coming up from within the rock, from within the earth. So this is an extinct seamount, but what we learned was that there is still a little bit of activity. There's still some warm water that is coming through the faults, the cracks, and the octopuses have recognized this. And it's just by a little bit, because this is cold, deep water, it speeds up the brooding, the hatching of their eggs. So this is why they've picked this warmer area all to lay their eggs. So this, we called it the Octopus Garden. This was the deepest, largest um, collection or colony of octopus brooding ever found. So again, when you put equipment in the water, ROVs, submersibles, anything with a camera, we find all kinds of things, make new discoveries, new species, things we never could have dreamt of sometimes. So this was a pretty big deal. This was a viral clip. The Octopus Garden. You can see Argus, the second ROV, tethered to Hercules and with the above view. And if you look now, and if you look carefully as we get in close, you can see the water shimmering. So we know it's a warmer temperature water that's coming out from the cracks between these rocks, which is why the octopus are brooding their eggs in this spot. So since we found this was 2018, it's been visited several more times by scientists who found the same huge collection of octopuses brooding their eggs here. And their best guess is that the octopus will probably spend something like 3 to 4 years brooding their eggs on the ocean floor, which is absolutely wild. But they are taking advantage too of the extra bit of warmth to try and speed it up a little bit. All right. I think I have one more slide. Yeah, so just another picture here. This is Hercules hovering over a ledge, filming. You can see the lights. The camera's filming the octopuses, and then the tether going up to Argus, which is the ROV that kind of watches from above and takes the movement of the ship away so it doesn't shake up Hercules. So they dive as a team, and this is a good illustration of Argus kind of overwatching Hercules. All right, well, that is the deep sea adventure I wanted to share with you today, and that brings us pretty close to the wrap of today's event. Let me stop the screen share. So the last thing to do is to talk about last week's curiosity of the week. Last week's curiosity of the week was this sample. You can see it's very shiny, it's very glittery, but the webcam doesn't really do it justice. It doesn't really want to focus in that nicely. So I did take a little phone video so we can kind of look at it a little more closely. And I did give a few hints last week. I said it's very common. I said that it's kind of a tricky mineral and it's often overlooked. So there it is. So the curiosity is called pyrite. So it's pyrite. It is a very common mineral. The clue of tricky was meant for one of its nicknames. It's sometimes called fool's gold because it does look similar to gold, like a gold nugget that would come out of the earth. So many a miner back in the day has been tricked by pulling out samples of pyrite from the earth. And then I was reading about it as well, that it may be a little bit overlooked because it's kind of getting a second look as maybe it could be an important component in future technology pieces. So we use things like gold and silver and other elements. And it looks like from recent articles that pyrite may be something that we can use as a component in our electronics in the future. So it's tricky. It's fool's gold. Pyrite is the name of this mineral. And that was our final curiosity of the week for the summer. So I'm not going to do a new one for this week because next week on the 12th, we'll have our classrooms back. We'll have our full hour events. We will have our curiosities of the week. We'll have experiments, guest speakers, connections from the ship, Kahoot quizzes. It should be a lot of fun. Our special guest next week will be Maria Bollerup. And if you remember, Maria joined us in Mangareva and sailed with us from Mangareva to Whakareva to Papiti in Tahiti. Along the way, she did coral transects for us. They got incredible underwater video with fish and sharks. They visited pearl farms, dived on reefs that were absolutely pristine and healthy. They also dove on reefs that were covered in algae and impacted by humans. So she'll be our special guest next week on the 12th at 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. UK time. So we hope to see you there. Thank you so much for joining us for our last 30-minute World's Most Exciting Classroom. Back to 1 hour next week. Before I do sign off, we do always want to make sure we give a shout out to our partners and collaborators and sponsors. without whom we wouldn't be in Tonga right now. We wouldn't have the world's most exciting classroom. We wouldn't be bringing Darwin leaders around the world to learn new skills for their conservation careers. The research we're doing wouldn't be happening. So we owe a lot to our sponsors, supporters, and such. So we're going to wrap up today with a little shout out to those sponsors and supporters. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week for the full Our World's Most Exciting Classrooms.